Good. Let's do a quick review how we even started this whole thing. So Perek Aleph, we were trying to understand what's a Rasha, what's a Beinani, specifically a Beinani, what it is, what's a Tzaddik. We know what the Beinani is not. We know that a Beinani is not somebody who sins, ever. If somebody sinned ever, even the smallest sin, he's not a Beinani. So now we have a big problem. What's the difference between a Beinani and a Tzaddik then? We don't know that yet. That was Perek Aleph. In the end of Perek Aleph, we were told that we have two souls. The godly soul and the animal soul. And we were told that the animal soul cares about you. He doesn't care about anything else. It's the mechanism that God put in every individual to take care of the organism. So that soul, it has one job, to make sure you survive. That's what it has: a desire for money, it has a desire for women, it has a desire for wine, and so on and so forth. That was chapter Aleph. Chapter Bet, we were introduced to the second soul by the Jewish people, and that's the godly soul. And we came to the conclusion that the godly soul, even though it looks different by each and every one of us, it manifests in different manners by tzaddikim and non-tzaddikim, and we would think it doesn't have, not everybody has the same godly soul. It told us, no, we all have the same godly soul, but just like the mother takes the seed, and sometimes she develops from the seed, the same point in the seed, she can develop the brain, and the same point of the seed, she develops the nails. And even though they're so far away, they both come from the same seed. That was in the second chapter of the Tanya. That's what we discussed about. The third chapter of Tanya, we started talking about the spheres, that every soul divides into two parts, into intellect and into emotions. And specifically, if you want to have an emotion, in order to have an emotion towards God, in our case, the emotions we were talking about is the godly soul's emotion. In other words, you want to love God, the only way you can love God, nobody wakes up in the morning and loves God. If you woke up one morning and have a love of God, you know something 100%. It's not your godly soul. Your godly soul is incapable of loving God unless something happens. We're going to explain what happens. Unless it understands what God is. Just like a child who's 2 years old doesn't love money. Why doesn't he love money? He doesn't understand money. You cannot love God if you don't understand God, which is going to be problematic. Nobody can understand God. We're going to have to understand what's going on over here. But nevertheless, we came to the conclusion that in order to love God, you need to have understanding of God, but understanding of God is not enough. After the understanding of God, you also need to do bina. It's not just to have an idea of what God is, to expand the idea, to build it, to give it depth. And it says, even then, you're the most intelligent Kabbalist in the world. And you're the most intelligent person, and you think about it all day long, you're still not going to come to love God. So the most intelligent Kabbalist in the world, who only thinks about God, and he teaches it all day long, is not going to have an emotion. He's not going to give birth to children of emotions towards God. Unless what? Unless he becomes obsessed with it. He needs to think about it. We're not talking about time, by the way, which we're going to see. In other words, it needs to be the thing in his life. It's okay to go to work. Yeah? But at your work, like you were working when you were 16 years old, you went to work, but you still thought about that woman over there. So the same thing has to be with God. You can go to work. You can talk to your wife. You can talk to your children. But at the time you're talking to your children, or you talk to your wife, or you talk to them, you also have to think about God. Unless you do that, you're not going to have any emotions towards God. That's what we learn in chapter 3. And that gives it a very hard standard. So what do you expect from me now? You want me to get to the same level? So we'll have to address that also. But that's what we did last time. That's where we ended last time. Okay? So we are in Perek Daled. Perek Daled is page 14. What we're going to be learning today, the beginning of chapter 14, is one of the most controversial things about Tanya. It's not just Tanya. It's not just Tanya. It's one of the most controversial things about Judaism. It's very hard to accept it. So if you don't accept it in the beginning, what we're going to say, the statements, I don't blame you. Nobody understands it, doesn't accept. It's not an acceptable thing until you understand what he says over here. So let's start. Perek Daled. Remember, we're discussing over here still the godly soul. We're not discussing the animal soul. This is a manifestation of the godly soul, whatever we want to discuss. Animal soul discussion is going to come later on. So just as we go through the chapter, remember, we're talking about the godly soul over here. Perek Daled, the fourth chapter, Ve'od, and furthermore, besides the 10 sfirot, Chochma, Bina, Dat, and the emotion that comes through it, that we learned in the previous chapter, beside those things, Yesh lekol nefesh elokit, every godly soul has something else. What does every godly soul has? Shlosha levushim, 3 garments. 3 garments. In other words, the soul gets dressed in garments, just like you have garments. The soul gets dressed in the garments. What are the garments of the soul? The garments of the soul is the way the soul communicates with the world around it. These are the garments. See, why do you have clothing? You don't need a clothing. You're an animal. Now, why do we need clothing? Because it's cold outside or it's hot outside. So it's either to protect you from the sun, protect you from the cold. That's why you have garments. There's another reason you have garments is I need to know if you're a policeman or you're a fireman. What are you? So garments represents who you are, what you are. There's another things for garments, not to be ashamed, but that we're not going to discuss about right now. We leave that for later on. But these are garments. In other words, garments are not you. The fact that you wear a policeman uniform doesn't mean you're a policeman. The fact that you have a big white beard and you wear a capota, doesn't mean you're religious. It's a garment. It's got nothing to do with the essence. It has nothing to do with your intellect, with the emotions, like we discussed before. Intellect and emotions are important things. Garments, they're not who the person is. They're outside things. They're not important. So it's over here, it says, we have 3 garments. What are the 3 garments of the godly soul? Again, remember, we're only talking about the godly soul over here. They are machshava, dibur, u'maaseh, their thought, speech, and action. When you think about Torah, when you speak about Torah, and when you do a mitzvah. Talking about the godly soul. The godly soul is not thinking about itself, it only thinks about God. Godliness means you think about God, which is the Torah, you speak words of Torah, or you do a mitzvah of the Torah. Shel Taryag mitzvot HaTorah, of the 613 commandments of the Torah. How? Kshehaadam, when a person mekayem, he fulfills, b'maaseh, he does in action. What does he do in action? Kol mitzvot maasiyot, not just some of the commandments, all of the commandments. In other words, every commandment that he has opportunity to do, he does. Ubedibur, and when it comes to speech, hu osek bepirush kol taryag mitzvot. When it comes into speech, he speaks words of Torah. Which part of the Torah? The entire Torah. Not just one part over here, one part over there. והלכותיהן, and all the laws, ובמחשבה הוא משיג כל מה שאפשר לו להשיג, and he thought he's able to grasp all it is possible for him to grasp in the 4 levels of Torah, Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod, which we're going to discuss later on in the Tanya. There's levels of Torah, levels of Pshat, levels of Drush, levels of Remez, level of Sod, higher and higher. So when he does that, and his entire soul is encompassed with all the Torah, not just some of the Torah, what happens? Then something happens. The thing that happens, we are built according to the commandments. That's the way we're built. There's 613 commandments, and that's the way we're built. הרי כללות תרי"ג איברי נפשו, we have 630 limbs. Yeah? 248 limbs and 365 sinews, makes up 613. But it doesn't matter. The 613 commandments correspond to the limbs of his soul, מלובשים בתרי"ג מצוות התורה. They are dressed in the 613 commandments of the Torah, ובפרטות בבחינת חב"ד שבנפשו. And specifically, the intellect of his soul מלובשת בהשגת התורה, is dressed in grasping the Torah. שהוא משיג, that a person can grasp, בפרדס, in the 4 levels. כפי יכולת השגתו, like his ability, ושורש נפשו למעלה, and the soul, how it is above. Let me just give a quick explanation of what we're talking about over here. There used to be a time that Tveria, Tzfat, there were very holy people living in those places. Rabbi Yosef Karo. Everybody heard of Rabbi Yosef Karo? Rabbi Yosef Karo, the one who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, lived over there. There was another young gentleman who lived at the same time of Rabbi Yosef Karo. The other young gentleman, his name you probably know, he was named the Arizal. Yeah? We know that the Arizal passed away at the age of 33. Rabbi Yosef Karo was, I think, in his 70s when he passed away. The Yosef Karo and the Arizal lived at the same time. Yosef Karo wrote the Shulchan Aruch, a great genius. And at the time that he's already known throughout the Jewish nation as the one person who wrote the Shulchan Aruch, there was I'm going to say it not in a nice way, but it looks like there was a pipsqueak, a young man over there that was teaching Kabbalah in the same town of Rabbi Yosef Karo. And he was teaching Kabbalah to a very deep levels, to such an extent that Rabbi Yosef Karo came to the Arizal and he says, I want to join the class that you're teaching. This is the great Rabbi Yosef Karo coming to the Arizal and telling the Arizal, I want to join your class. Probably the Arizal is in his 20s at the time. Yeah? And this is Rabbi Yosef Karo coming over to join a class of the Arizal. And the Arizal told him, you can't. So Rabbi Yosef Karo what do you mean I can? I want to learn also. So he says, it's not that I don't allow you to learn. He says, you're just not going to understand. It's too much for you. You know? So Rabbi Yosef Karo says, what do you mean? You're talking about a genius of the generation, Rabbi Yosef Karo, and this pipsqueak is telling him, you can't, it's too much for you. So he tried again, Rabbi Yosef Karo, to come and learn, and again he pushed him away. So Rabbi Yosef Karo went to his Shulchan Aruch, the Shulchan Aruch that he wrote, and he opened up the Shulchan Aruch in front of the Arizal, and he showed him there's a halacha. And the halacha over there says that a Jew needs to learn all parts of the Torah. Pshat, Remez, Drush, and Sod. It says it right there. It's a halacha. It's Jewish law that I am commanded by God to learn also this part of the Torah. There's a commandment to learn this kind of Torah. So the Arizal looked at him and he says, I'm not against you learning. It is you are not going to be understanding what I'm talking about. So he says, he pushed him again, and he pushed him again, and he pushed him again, until the Arizal told him, you know what? I'll give you a trial. I'll give you a test. If you pass the test, I'll take you. If you don't pass the test, I'm not going to take you. So what was the test? They went out into the forest in the middle of the night, both Rabbi Yosef Karo and the Arizal. And the Arizal told Rabbi Yosef Karo it was midnight. And it was known that Rabbi Yosef Karo used to have a seder at midnight. He used to learn. You know, he had, just to understand, at that time, they didn't learn, they didn't sleep the way we sleep. Most people at that time, what they used to do is they used to go to sleep at sunset. There's no more light. There's nothing else to do. They used to sleep at sunset. It was 8 o'clock, for example. They used to sleep for 4 hours. Then they used to wake up at midnight, do tikkun chatzot, be awake for 3 hours, and then go to sleep again until sunrise. So they split their sleep usually at that time into 2 parts. It was 4 hours and 2 hours, or 4 hours and 3 hours, whatever it was, not like we do today. But nevertheless, Rabbi Yosef Karo was known to be up most of the nights anyway, learning. So he told him, I'm going to go. The Arizal told Rabbi Yosef Karo, you're going to sit over here on a log. It was midnight. I'm going to go back, and I'm going to come back to you before sunrise. If you are still awake, I will teach you. He went, he woke up Rabbi Yosef Karo, like he woke him up, he fell asleep, and they walked back to town, and he never learned Kabbalah. Yeah, he learned Kabbalah, not from Arizal.
Why fell asleep? You usually was up.
I don't know. That's the story. Now, but let's understand what are we doing? When we're saying that a person has to achieve all he can achieve in the Pardes, in the levels of the Torah, you can achieve, every person can achieve whatever he can achieve. Some people, there are levels of understanding. It's not that one understanding, people try to think the Arizal was smarter than Rabbi Yosef Karo. No, it's not true. The Arizal would never be able to write what Yosef Karo wrote, the Shulchan Aruch. They had a different neshama. One, think about it, it's almost like in light, you know how you have blue light, yellow light. Some people have a brain that it can see blue light better. Some people have a brain that it can see this light better. So it's not how much IQ you have. It's what this machine, this nefesh, what this soul is capable of absorbing. So over here it tells you every person has a soul. It has a receiver for certain lights. Some people have a receiver for light of pshat. Some people have a receiver of light of halacha. Some people a receiver of light of drush. They understand concepts of drush better. Some people understand Kabbalah better. It's just a different kind of receiver that the brain has. But nevertheless, your brain has supposed to do whatever it is capable of. Engross yourself in all levels of the Torah that your souls can. Everybody can achieve all 4. It's not that you can't achieve all 4. The question is, every soul has a main part. Some people, the main part is in Pshat. By the way, you can see this in people. People have different kinds of brains. They can be geniuses to no end. It doesn't matter. Some people are capable of you can see their brains is all the time thinking about stuff. It's in the clouds though. You know, they cannot bring those thoughts down to action down here on earth. And some people don't have so many thoughts. They don't have so many thoughts. But if you tell them an idea, they're able to take the idea and to build it up here. It's a different kind of brain. Same thing over here. So a person is supposed to achieve all the things in the 613 commandments, vehamidot, And then we have the emotions. Shen ir'a ve'ahava, like we explained last time, the emotions are love of God and awe of God. Ve'anfehem ve'toldotehem. So when you do all these commandments, that you said that the soul is doing all those commandments that we discussed before, it's not enough just to do the commandments because God said so. You have to do them with the right emotions. In other words, you don't do it just to get, I'm putting on tefillin so that I can be after tefillin, or I'm davening because I have got to go to work. So I need to daven to go to work. No. I can't wait to daven because this is what I'm looking for. This is the highlight of my day. Yeah? So, ira ve'ava, you do the commandments through love and awe, ve'anfehem ve'toldotehem, all their subsidiaries, melubashot be'kiyum ha'mitzvot. They're going to be dressed in those commandments. B'ma'aseh u'bedibur, when you do the commandment, it has to be done with proper emotions. U'bedibur, and when you speak, it has to be spoken with emotions. Shehu Talmud Torah, Shehu Shegeneret Kulam. And learning Torah obviously has to be done because I can't wait to understand godliness. Ki ha'ava, because we're going to learn later on, love, hi shoresh kol ramach mitzvot aseh. You're not the root of all the 248 positive commandments. Where does the root of the action of to do the mitzvah comes from? It comes from love of God. In other words, why would you do a mitzvah? The proper way to do a mitzvah? Because I love God to such an extent, I want to do a favor to Him. Let's take an example. I love these examples. I give it very often. Everybody claims they love their wives. How do you know you love your wife? If you're going to love something she loves, not something you love, something she loves. Most men don't like shopping, right? Most men, I don't know all men, some men do like, but most men don't like shopping. Especially don't like shopping the type shopping their wives do. Usually a man likes to shop, he knows what he's going to get, he goes, he gets out. Yeah, shopping with a wife is a whole different ball game. She can go 6 hours, put on 20 things, take it out and walk out with nothing. Most men don't like shopping with their wives. Let's put it this way. How do you know you love your wife? If you love going shopping with her, not because you like it, because it makes her happy. Because it makes her happy. That's how you know that you love your wife. So all of a sudden you see the people, when you tell them this is the measurement for love, you say, you know what, maybe I don't love my wife to such an extent. And why do I say it? Because it's interesting, we're not willing to do it for our wives. But every grandparent knows that when his granddaughter comes over, and she tells him, can we play with my dolls? Can we play dress-up dolls with my dolls? The grandparent, like somebody like me, can sit down with his granddaughter and play in the kitchen with the cups, feed her dolls for 2 hours. Because why? Because it makes you happy that she's happy. So it says it's the same thing when you do commandments to God. It should be a proper relationship. What's a proper relationship when you do commandment to God? When you do a positive commandment to God, why do you do it? God wants me to do the commandment. This is what He wants. I love doing it. Even though it's true that it's also for me. But that's not the reason why. The reason why I'm doing those commandments is I love God to such an extent, it makes my soul happy to know that He's happy that I'm doing the commandments. Just like it makes my soul happy to know that my granddaughter is happy right now when I'm playing with the dolls. Unlike with the wife, it doesn't make the soul so happy. Maybe we have to work on ourselves. Maybe not. We'll discuss it some later on in Tanya. But it's something to think about. Yeah? וממנה, from the love, the commandments, וממנה הם נמשכות. From them, the commandments are drawn. ובלעדה, and if you don't do it for the reason that I mentioned now, because you want to make God happy, because you love him, אין להם קיום אמיתי. It's true. You can be a religious person. I'm not saying you can't be a religious person. I'm not saying you can't perform all the Torah mitzvahs. But this is not what God meant. This is not marriage. Or it is a marriage. It's not a good marriage. It's not a happy marriage. It's not a type of relationship that you look for to have with God. We're trying to look a nice marriage with God, a proper marriage with God, a loving marriage with God. So it's true that I can do commandments. I do commandments to God every day. Just that do you know how I do commandments to God? Just like I do commandments with my wife. I take out the garbage every day. Yeah? Do you think it's with love? Yeah? Whenever my wife tells me, usually I do. Yeah? We do what our wife tells us. Are we happy doing it? Not necessarily. We're doing it because we get off my back, one of the things. So some people have this kind of relationship with God. Sorry, I'm not going to say some people. I'm going to say I. You want to say you can say you. I, many times, this is the type of relationship I have with God. Why do I do the commandments? I did the commandments, now get off my back. I don't owe you anything. It's not a loving relationship necessarily. Not every time I put on tefillin, it's a loving relationship. I'm doing it because I'm so happy that you're happy. No, I do it because I need to do it. Now it's over. I don't owe you anything. Now I can do whatever I want. Thank you very much. Have a nice day. That's the way we have a relationship with God. That's why it said this is not true marriage. That's why it says it's not kiyum amiti. You're not really supporting the marriage over here in such a behavior. Ki hamekaimam be'emet, because the one who does commandments proper, who ha'ohevet Hashem, is the one who actually wants to do the commandments. Why? Because he connects him to God. He can't wait to have another reason to be with his wife. A real person, who really loves his wife, is crazy about his wife. I have an opportunity to run to shopping with her, to be next to her. It doesn't matter what she does. I'm happy to be next to her. The same thing with God. I have an opportunity to be with him. It's not just, I want to get it over with. See, you can be a very religious person, do all the commandments, and you don't have a good marriage with God.
Or with your wife.
Or with your wife. Or you're with your wife, that's true. Or with your wife. וחפץ דווקא בו באמת. In other words, a person who doesn't want to put on tefillin, he just does it because of that. He doesn't really want God. Don't tell me he has a good relationship with God. Don't tell me this is a good marriage. A good marriage is when you want to please God. You want to be next to him. You're trying to find reasons to get close to him. You're not trying to get it over with. Right? That's what a good marriage is all about. ואי אפשר לדווקא בו באמת. Now he comes to the problem. There is really no way to attach yourself to... See, God is a problem. God is problematic. I'll tell you, come close to your wife. Everybody understand what it means. It means to talk to her all the time. It means to be with her all the time. It means to spend time with her, to care about things she cares. It means to get involved with the wife. I tell you, come close to money, you understand what it means. Or to your business. It means to think about the business, to care about the business, to all day long your brain has to be in the business. That's what it means to love your business. Your brain is in your business. The problem with God is, he's not here. I can't see him. How am I supposed to attach myself to him? I want to be close to him. To close to what? He has no definition. How do I get close to something that's not here? I'm not saying he's not here. It's not here to me. Maybe it's here. He knows he's here. I can see him here. How do I get close to something which I cannot touch? I can't even how is there a way to get close to him? ובאמת, so that's what he says, and in truth, אי אפשר לדבקה בו באמת, it is impossible to really attach to God, כי אם בקיום רמ"ח פקודים. You want to attach yourself to God, there's only one way to get close to God. When a person does the 248 commandments, positive commandments. That's it. There's no other way. How other ways would you get closer to God? There's nothing to get close to. See, to my wife, I can physically come close to. I can think about her. If I tell you to think about God, you tell me think about what? God has no definition. So over here it tells you, how do you get close to God? When you perform all the commandments, the 248 positive commandments in the Torah. Shehem, what are the 248 commandments in the Torah? Shehem ramach evarim de malka. The 248 commandments in the Torah are the 248 limbs of God. I'll explain this a little bit later on. God has 248 ways where he manifests himself in the world. There's 248, call it energies, in our things. There's 248 styles. There's 248 emanations of godliness in this world. Because we are made in the image of God, our soul has 248 ways also that emanates the body. And because of that, there's 248 limbs of the body. Every limb corresponds to an emanation within the soul, who corresponds to emanation within God, who reflects himself down on earth. כביכול, כמו שכתוב במקום אחר, like it is written in another place. So when you do a positive commandment, why does a person does a positive commandment? It has to be done as a proper relationship to God. Not just doing the commandment to get rid of it, or doing the commandment because I'm expected to. Going to God because I love God, I want to connect to him. And this is the way to connect to him. I love my wife, I want to speak to her. I want to dance with her. I want to take a walk with her. I want to discuss something with her. I want to understand her. Something with God. It's not a relationship that, okay, I did whatever I did, and I am happy to doing all these things. So the love of God has to be the motivation to do all the commandments. והיראה, but that's not enough. Loving God is not the whole story. One also has to have awe of God. In other words, his shoresh, I'm going to explain, לשסה לא תעשה. It is the root of the 365 negative commandments. There are 365 commandments. Do not murder, do not steal, and so on and so forth. 365 commandments. כי ירא, why are you not doing them? Let me give you an example. Why don't most people steal, if they can even? Because they don't want to feel like lowlives. If that's why you don't steal, that's not what it says over here. You know why you should not steal? Not because you don't want to feel like a lowlife. Because then you're stealing, you're not stealing. It means that when you do, that if you steal and you feel good about it, now you will steal. So the reason not to steal, you know what it is we don't steal? Because God said so. God is my boss, and he tells me what to do, and I don't steal because it's against him. כי ירא למרוד במלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. Because he's afraid to go against God. It says, how can I imagine right now a person who's going to help the Palestinians? Right? He's going to give information where babies are so the Palestinians can go and kidnap them. This is why you know why we don't steal, why we don't do negative commandments? Because we're openly in rebellion against God. God wants to protect the Jewish nation, and we're openly rebelling against him. That's why we don't steal. The problem is we don't feel like we're going against God when we do all the commandments. So it says, if you don't feel it, that's not a good relationship. You don't have a good relationship with God. He's telling us things which are very, very high level. But why is he telling us? Because this is not us. We don't have that relationship with God. He's talking about our godly soul. This is the godly soul within us. That's the way it thinks. We are not attached to the godly soul so much. Who we attached to? The animal soul. The animal soul we understand. The godly soul not so much. We'll have to find ways how to connect to it later on. So this is a one level, or יראה פנימית מזו, or even a deeper awe of God, שמתבושש מגדולתו. He's not afraid that God is going to hit him. Some people will not steal because they're afraid to go to Gehenna. They're afraid to go to hell. You know, they do not cheat on their wives because they're afraid, I'm not going to cheat because I'm afraid to go to hell. That's why you don't cheat. So it says that it's good that you don't cheat, but that's not a good relationship now. If that's the only reason why you don't cheat on your wife because you're afraid to go to hell, what kind of relationship you have with your wife? That's not such a good relationship. למרות עיני כבודו ולעשות הרע בעיניו. A deeper things is you have too much respect for him. He says, how can I go against my father? My father is working so hard, building whatever he is building over here, and I'm going to go to be on the team against him? לעשות הרע בעיניו, to do the evil in his eyes, all the negative commandments, כל תועבת השם אשר שנא, to do all the disgusting things that God hates. How can I go against my father? הם הקליפות וסטראך, these are all the other side, אשר יניקתם מהאדם התחתון, that they cannot live, by the way, without us. Evil cannot exist without man. The reason evil exists in the world today is because of us personally. Each and every one of us. I know it's a tough thing to hold, like I told you in the beginning. We feed evil. We have free choice. When we choose evil within our lives, in other words, we do any one of the 365 negative commandments, we increase evil in the world. And the world becomes more evil and evil. So when people ask, why is there, bad things happening in the world? Usually the answer is because I sinned. Not because other people sinned. And if you tell me because other people sinned, yes, you know why other people are sinning? Because I sin. I increase the evil in the world. The more we sin, the more evil comes down to the world. The only reason evil can survive is if it is fed, as we're going to learn later on. So in other words, when we see evil in the world, we have a tendency to blame everybody else. And it might be true. It might be everybody else is contributing. But you don't have control over everybody else. You do have control over your own sin. When we, as a person, I sin less, it means there's now less evil in the world. It means everybody in the world now, proportionally, is also going to sin less. And so on and so forth. And it's going to be a circle until that's when Mashiach comes. Mashiach comes when we keep Torah and mitzvahs. There's not going to be more sins in the world. It has to start with you. We cannot start with somebody else. The Arabs are not going to start it. The Arabs are not going to decide, I'm going to sin less tomorrow. If we sin less, so until now the Arabs were capable of killing a 3-month-old boy. You sin less, they'll only be able to kill a 4-month-old boy. It's a little bit higher now. A 3 months they'll have mercy on. ואחיזתם בו הוא בשסה מצוות לא תעשה. So it is in other words, the reason why we don't sin should be because we are working actively against God. That's why we don't sin. It's true I have a desire to sin. Everybody has a desire to sin. When people make you angry, you have a desire to become angry. We have a desire to shout. We have a desire to scream. We have the desire to throw tantrums like 5 years old. That's what we do all the time. Right? So why shouldn't we? Simple. Because I am going against God. God is trying to make a good place over here, build something, and we're destroying it. That's why we shouldn't get angry. Simple. And now we're going to go to controversial part. The garments, like we say, is not you. It's things you get dressed in. What do you mean it's not you? See, if I'm kind or not kind, that's me. If I'm intelligent or not intelligent, Chabad. My Chabad, that's my personality. That's who I am. I am personality. That's who I am. My emotions, if I love something or I don't love something, that's me. It's me. If I get dressed in something, that's not me. Because a garment is made to put on and is made to take off. It's not made to stay there all the time. What's the proof? It's changeable. And what's the proof? Let's take speech or action. I can be kind to somebody I hate. In action, I can give charity to somebody who doesn't deserve charity. I can go, Netanyahu, right now, Israel gives supplies to the Palestinians. It feeds them. It feeds them. Not only it feeds them with food, it feeds them with murderers. It brings back murderers it feeds them. Here's a garment. It's a garment of kindness. It's not always there. It's the same guy who feeds them can a day later shoot those terrorists. The same thing. How is it possible? It's a garment. It's an action. An action is a garment. You can love somebody and you can tell him you hate him. You can hate somebody and you tell him you love him. Because it's not you. It's a garment. Yeah? You cannot, I'll give you an example. You can think that 2 plus 2 equals to 5. But you cannot understand 2 plus 2 equals to 5. When it comes to intellect, it's not a garment. It is who you are. You can't understand 2 plus 2 equals to 5. You can't change it. That's the way it is. If you're a Republican, you stay a Republican usually. If you're a Democrat, you stay a Democrat usually. That's the way it works. So, if I ask you what's higher, your soul or your garment, everybody in the world is going to tell you, what are you talking about? The soul is infinitely higher than the garment. Let's go inside. Vehine, and behold, shlosha levushim elu, those 3 garments, thought, speech, and action, mehatorah u'mitzvotea, that they are Torah and mitzvahs. Thought, speech, and action of the soul when it comes to doing commandments. Af shenikraim levushim lanefesh, even though they are called garments to the soul, ruach v'neshama, to the 3 levels of the soul. Im kol ze, nevertheless, this is the controversial thing, gavha, they are higher, vegadla, and it is bigger, ma'alatam, their level, le'en ketz v'sof, infinitely more, al ma'alat nefesh ruach v'neshama atzman, on the soul itself. Let me explain what I'm saying over here. A person, non-religious person, walks in Tel Aviv. He's eating a shawarma, not kosher, there's pig inside. He's eating a pig pita, right? He's walking with his friend in Tel Aviv down the block. And all of a sudden there's a guy on a tefillin stand. They have tefillin over there. And the guy tells them, guys, would you like to put on tefillin? And the guy tells him, no, not interested. But his friend is already there, and his friend is putting on tefillin. So there's another guy next to him, says, your friend is putting tefillin, you're stuck here anyway, you might as well put on tefillin. He says, I don't feel like it. He says, come on. He says, don't worry, I'll do it for you. You just put your hand out like this, I'm going to put the tefillin on you, you did the mitzvah, just say Shema Israel, 2 seconds, take it off. He says, okay, I'm waiting with my friend anyway, I'll do that. So the guy does that, and he eats the pig, and he puts on tefillin. You know what we just read? That this act, right now, that this guy is doing, is infinitely higher than the nefesh, ruach, and neshama, not of the person, of Moshe Rabbeinu.
The act itself.
The act of putting on tefillin. And what act of putting on tefillin? The act of putting on tefillin with no intention. The guy is eating pig. He doesn't even care about the tefillin. The act, it's a garment, it's not him. And that's the proof. How do I know it's not him? He's continuing to eat pig. You know who he is? He is a person who doesn't think about God. He's a person who doesn't care about tefillin. And what's the proof? He's eating pig right now. And over here, you know what it says? That this, right now, this act is not just higher, infinitely higher than not his soul, than any soul that ever existed. This is like something, once you start to understand what it says over here, you're going to say, this book is crazy. This whole idea of what I just said now is a crazy idea. You want to tell me a physical act is higher than the soul of a person? How is it even probable? How is it even possible? It's, you know, and you think to yourself, by the way, we're almost out of time, but I'm going to give you, it doesn't just come down. I'll give you an example for it. No, not today. It's going to take too long. And we're going to stop over here. The explanation, as much little or big explanation if we're going to have, is going to be next week. I will take questions though. I know what I said is very controversial. I can take questions, it's okay.
שאלות?
Yeah.
יש בסידור שאומרים והבטחה לבבך, ואתה אומר רגע אני לא אוהב אותו, אבל בסידור אומרים שאתה צריך לאהוב אותו כי זה מה שכתוב, ואהבת בכל לבבך, בכל נפשך, בכל מאודיך.
Do I sometimes make my wife angry? I'm supposed to love her, to be with her. Do I make her angry sometimes?
Yeah.
Same thing over here. I make him angry sometimes. I'm not nice. I'm not a nice husband. I wouldn't like to be married to me. Right? You think, we're the wife of God. God is the husband, we are the wife. Are we a good wife? Some people are better wives than other people. Am I a good wife? If I'm a husband, would I like a wife like me? No. I'd rather have a better wife than me. If this is the relationship I have with God, if I treat my wife the same way, you know, it's going to be, I treat my wife much better than I treat God. I'm afraid of, not only I love her more than I love God, I probably fear her more than I fear God. She can give me real trouble. He can also do. But him, I'm not so scared. I do it all anyway. With her, I know there are going to be consequences. With him, I also intellectually know there's going to be consequences, but I'm not so scared. If I would be scared, I wouldn't act the way I act. It's a very good question what you're asking, but you see, yeah, and we're going to have to deal with it. This is what we learn in Tanya for. What kind of relationship we are with God? It looks like an abusive relationship, the whole relationship. It's an abusive marriage, sometimes. I don't know who's abusing whom, but we'll discuss that also. Yeah, but it's a good question. We should love God. Unfortunately, we don't. I don't know, I don't speak about other people.
You don't like God?
I like steak more.
It's a surprise for me, so this one.
I can, intellectually, in my mind, I do like God, but not in action. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
If you ask me,
I mean, you're the rabbi. You're supposed to love more than everybody else because the sign between us to God. So you must love Him.
no, I act. We're all married to God. Everybody is married to God. A person who, God forbid, cheats on his wife, God forbid, cheats on his wife, he can be a very good father or a very good husband when he's together with his with his wife. He can be a better husband than somebody who never cheats on his wife. Do you understand what I just said? A person that once a week goes and cheats on his wife and then comes back to the marriage, yeah, he can be a better husband than a guy who never cheats on his wife. It's just not nice to her. So you're assuming that because I don't cheat, my marriage is better. Not necessarily. Sometimes the guy who cheats, his marriage is better. And we discussed that. It's problematic.
You're right. If somebody gives you flour, why would I give you flour?
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I don't want to make it so dark the way I'm making it. I'm just doing it for the understanding part. Obviously, it's not so bad as I make it out to be. Yeah, you'll understand it. I'm not doing it because just to give the contrast, I'm saying those things. It's not necessarily that you see a person with a big white beard and he's got a nice kapota and he goes to shul every day, 3 days, and he learns Torah all day long, that it's a good marriage with God. It might be an abusive marriage completely, from both sides. It doesn't have to be a good marriage.
Don't look at the garments that the people have.
Oh, and all of a sudden, what did we learn?
That's what we learned.
And what did we learn now?
The action.
That the garments do look at the garments. Because the garments are what? Are higher than the soul. And that's the problem. That's what we need to understand. Very good.
You have to identify who's wearing the right garments or who's just wearing a garment.
It doesn't matter. The garment itself, for the wrong reason, is more important than the soul.
Right.
That's what it says.
Somebody coming police. You think he's a police? You sure he's a police? Give me something. I don't have.
Exactly.
Police.
But over here we're talking about the garments are Torah and mitzvahs. We're talking about proper garments. We're not talking about fake garments. Garments of Torah and mitzvahs. In other words, the guy is putting on tefillin. That's the garment. He's doing one of the 613 commandments. 248 positive commandments. He's dressed in God's garment, and we are told that this is more important than his soul. Very, very strange. In other words, we are told that this is more important than his emotions. It's more important than his intellect. It's more important than if he thinks he's religious or not religious. The most important thing is the garment. That doesn't make sense. And that's what we're going to be dealing next time. Okay.
But in actuality, in real life, you understand, no? That's a mistake.
What do you mean?
The garments in real life, if I'll take a king, I'll take a bum and put him in a clothes of a king, and he's going to walk, they're all going to say, oh, he's the king, here is the king. Somebody can know he's not the king. He will know, but the rest of the people, they think he is a king.
Over here we're saying even for him, the garments make him. Is more important than the soul.
Right.
That's what we're saying over here. Even for him, all of a sudden, in other words, we say King Shlomo, when he's wearing the crown is more important than the king. Something doesn't make sense.